VC firm called DraemVentures. And he has plenty to say about all the struggles and all the failures that are faced by entrepreneurs in every journey, and all the recoveries, and how he did what he did and how he's doing what he's doing. So please give him a round of applause.
Well, thank you so much, Kim, and thank you all. I'm really sorry I'm running late. It took over 2 hours to get across the bridge today, so we're really rough. But my name is Eisenstat, and really honored to be with you all here today. Since it's a larger class, I usually do an exercise where we go around, but I think to save time, if you could all whip out your phones, open an email, and think for a second what your dream job is. And with that, think about what social and environmental problem you'd like to solve by doing that dream job. So take a minute right now and breathe deeply while you really think about it. These are some deep questions. Got it? And in the process, if you are so inclined, feel free to email them to me. Would anyone like to share theirs for the moment? And maybe after. So this is my dream job, to create a venture capital fund of helping people really do what they love and solve some of the world's biggest challenges while doing that. I'll let you all finish the emails while I say that. I moved out to the Bay Area. It's coming on 2 years ago now. I was living in Wisconsin before this. Anyone from Wisconsin here? No? Yeah, it's pretty cold right now. -40 was our record. Yeah, it was rough. And they had a saying there at the University of Wisconsin of don't let school get in the way of your education. And I think that's something to remember as you get closer to finals. I studied finance there, and my sophomore year I went to work at a hedge fund in Wall Street, and this was the summer of 2008. So I remember I was doing all this research and was able to predict some really exciting numbers, and they offered me a full-time job after about a week of working there, and wanted me to drop out of school. I said, thanks, I'm only a sophomore though, so I'll keep working at this. But the more I ran these numbers, I really saw that we were going to go into a new Great Depression. It was really intense, and then Bear Stearns collapsed, and Lehman Brothers, and the world felt like it was falling apart. And I was doing this research. I was calling people and speaking to them all around the world, and everyone was losing all their money, and they had no idea why or how. So it really prompted me to learn more about this. And in that process, I started learning and was really frustrated by how unconscious this capital was. People were really only concerned with short-term profits, that single bottom line. And I thought that there has to be a better way of looking at that. So then the bailouts happened, and that was really just a curveball. And I felt that it was really important to go to Washington, D.C. I took a semester off and worked at a couple different think tanks there, the World Security Institute, Center for Defense Information, the Global Zero Project, Pulitzer Center on Crisis Reporting. There were all these amazing institutions doing this great research and policy reporting, but Congress wasn't listening at all. So it really prompted me to then start up a new nonprofit. And this is one of the big lessons that I learned, that in the nonprofit world, it's very frustrating that you have to rely on donations, whereas that money is coming from the for-profit industry. And then so to be put back in, this was 2009 at the time, and I believe nonprofits donations dropped close to 30% that year. And it was something that started off as a nonpartisan effort to amend the Constitution. We wanted to create a digital democracy, which I believe that dream is still very viable, but the problem is that these special interests got involved, and I no longer felt really comfortable working at something with that mission anymore. So I was really inspired by the environmental movement. And with a couple friends, we watched some YouTube videos and decided to figure out how to start an organic farm back in Wisconsin. So we built greenhouses, these 30-foot by 90-foot greenhouses, and planted some lettuce, and we ended up selling to James Beard award-winning restaurants. And it was something that was really exciting to me, not just to grow vegetables, but to grow ideas. We had a 50-acre farm and a 3-bedroom farmhouse that I paid a lot less for than what I'm paying right now for a studio apartment in Pacifica. But we created this incubator there, and it was a retreat center for people to come work on whatever they were passionate about. So we had startups and musicians and artists come out, and it was really inspiring. But that's where I saw there were so many incredible ideas, but very little funding at that idea stage. And this was also the time where I was really researching the microfinance movement and learning about Muhammad Yunus and Kiva. But going back to my experience with hedge funds, that Morgan Stanley, Merrill Lynch, they were levered 40 times their assets. And I was thinking about how we can take these systems of equity and apply that to microfinance. And then Shark Tank happened. I started watching Shark Tank, and it was so frustrating and upsetting how these investors were treating the entrepreneurs, these creative people, the people with the ideas. I felt that there was such complete disrespect, and there has to be a better way. And that, I think, is the answer with the impact investing world, of allowing for companies to have a social, environmental, and financial impact. So I came out here to Silicon Valley. I went to Draper University, started by venture capitalist Tim Draper. We were in the first official class, and we had 40 students from around the world, 50 speakers from all different industries, and it all accumulated to a big pitch competition at the end. And that's where I started DraemVentures. And the idea behind DraemVentures is to invest in socially, environmentally, and technologically conscious businesses at the idea stage. And since then, we've invested in 12 companies, everything from a nonprofit fundraising site, and we structured most of these as benefit corporations. Have you guys learned much about benefit corporations? Just last August, Delaware legalized the concept of a benefit corporation. And this allows for a company's fiduciary responsibility to be for a social and environmental cause as well as a financial one. So you no longer can be sued by your shareholders for working on the maximizing returns to your stakeholders as well. So this allows you to have a for-profit mission, a nonprofit mission with a for-profit business model. So you can have a margin and a mission at the same time. And I think that this is the real new revolution that's happening in corporate governance. So we now have a system where we can help students and young entrepreneurs get started with these micro investments and create a new kind of product and get onto the next levels of funding from there. The problem is our investing world is still very much still very old school. You need to be an accredited investor to invest in private companies. So we're working right now also on creating a digital platform to completely automate that process and go public with it later this year. So we'll allow any investor to invest any amount of money in that. And I've been working with some other organizations on doing that, not only here in the US, in the Bay Area. We've been working a lot with Stanford. We've been working with the Extreme Tech Challenge with Richard Branson. I was invited to Necker Island this week, but we are working on another project in Palo Alto that I'll talk to you all about in a second. And the Bay Area Alliance for Community Development, working with underrepresented entrepreneurs. Right now, women and minorities have low single digits percentage of venture capital funding. And we're going to see that change a lot. This homogeneity is really going to shift to a very diverse new group of entrepreneurs. And right now, navigating the legal environment is really exciting. And changing these legal systems, the accounting systems, being able to quantify triple bottom line, people, planet, and profit is something that I'm really passionate about. And going back to our investments, we do everything from a new type of music platform, a new type of video game that you control with your mind, that's actually been shown to treat ADD, ADHD, depression. It's called Throw Trucks With Your Money. You can go ahead and add that up. We're also investing in a plant-based technology company. We're working on biological solar panels and algae-based battery systems, biodegradable shoes and plastics, and new types of food and juice. Also cryptocurrency debit cards and gift cards, new type of emergency response system for mental health issues. So really a completely diverse portfolio is our mission. And by doing that, we can really allow for the highest risk possible, but also looking for those maximizing those returns. And in the process of doing this, I've been traveling all around the Bay Area, all around the country, did workshops in Panama. And I had really been missing having a home base, having a place to really grow these ideas. And I recently went to Burning Man over the summer. Have any of you guys been to Burning Man? No, highly recommend it. and seeing the community that's created, it was really inspiring. I got together with another friend of mine from Drake University, and we created a new kind of organization, new kind of community center right on University Avenue in Palo Alto that we're calling BHuman. And we just had our launch party last Saturday night. And what this place is about, it's structured as a benefit corporation, and we're creating a holocratic governance system to it, where there's no one executive, but it's run by the community. And we're able to do that by creating new types of crypto equity smart contracts using the Bitcoin blockchain system. But for people that have never heard of that, I use the term, it's a gift card with voting rights. Imagine being able to buy into a company and decide on what you're buying there. So in that, we're featuring startups, we're featuring artists, musicians, chefs, and speakers. And we want to have new stuff there on a regular basis and expand that all over the world. So we've been talking about doing it here in Berkeley, San Francisco, New York, but also internationally, and have that as a hub for social innovation. So with that, I believe that we are on the verge of a new industrial revolution. Are you guys familiar with Moore's Law? You learn much about that?
Yeah, you want me to explain it? Or?
Yes, please.
Is Moore's Law the one where it's like technology grows at an exponential rate?
Yes.
Right? So eventually technology will grow at such a rate that by the time you learn how to use the current tech, it's already outdated?
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. So what that shows over the past close to 100 years is that the processing power of a computer chip has been doubling in power, halving in size, and halving in price. But right now, we're at this inflection point at that exponential curve. We're at that knee of the curve because we're computing with electrons. You can't get any smaller than light. And what they're finding with quantum computing, have you guys learned much about quantum computing? They call it Rose's law now. So it's taking Moore's law and applying it to quantum computers. And in quantum physics, it gets into this weird, spooky action, what Einstein called it. And you're able to use the interdimensional properties of these electrons that in classical computing is a binary system. It's a 0 or a 1. And with quantum computing, it can be a 0 and a 1 at the same time. So right now, they're able, with current quantum computers, they're these big boxes, huge, and you have to freeze them down close to absolute 0. But they're able to do a computation which takes a classical supercomputer half an hour to do in a fraction of a second. The next data point on that, and it's been following this same curve since 2002 when they first developed viable quantum computers, the next data point is more powerful than all supercomputers put together. The data point after that, next year, this is supposed to happen later this year, the data point after that is it will be a computer chip more powerful than the universe. So imagine every atom in the universe were a classical supercomputer. A single chip will be more powerful than that. So imagine the implications. What's the data point after that? It's unbelievable to think about. We are truly not just on the verge of a new industrial revolution with this computing power, with this technology, but a new renaissance. What this will allow for with our culture, with our society, is really unique. And I think we see a lot of the older generations filled with fear. They don't fully understand these things. And I think it's very important talking to you all. How many of you are seniors? Juniors? Sophomores? Any freshmen here? All right, nice. Yes, we got a good group. And so you guys really are the ones that have grown up with this technology. Now, a child in sub-Saharan Africa with a cell phone has $1 trillion of computing power from 1980. And what we're seeing is that there's more cell phones than running water in the world. There's still so many social problems, but uniquely now we have the tools to solve those. And I believe that by working through our financial institutions and our political institutions, that we can help further those disruptive technologies. So in 5 minutes, I'd like to go through a BuzzFeed style top 10 technologies that are going to change the world in the next 10 years. Very quickly, and then I am happy to open it up to any questions that you all may have, and we can have a discussion. Number 10 is aquaponics. Are you guys familiar with aquaponics? Mm-hmm. New agricultural revolution. You're able to grow vegetables with fish. The waste of the fish provides the nutrients to the vegetables, and that filters out the water for the fish. Creates a closed system, inherently organic, really amazing. Number 9, bioplastics. Using these new materials, we don't have to use these hydrocarbons anymore to make our plastics. So everything can be made out of these natural renewable materials. Number 8, solar power. Solar power is so abundant that we also have new systems of furthering this photovoltaics, but also following Moore's law. Number 7, though, fusion. I think here at Berkeley, you guys were able to create the first viable fusion reactor, basically mimicking a star using lasers and creating a chemical reaction where there's more energy that comes out than was put in. Number 6, augmented reality and virtual reality. Have any of you guys tried Oculus Rift? It is wild. Just like the internet was nascent 20 years ago, and now it is completely ubiquitous everywhere. We're going to see the same thing with virtual reality. I tried it recently when I was at CES in Vegas, and we went into the Matrix, and you take the red pill, and all the guns come by you, and you jump over the building, you're dodging bullets. It's unbelievable. You take the goggles off, and you don't know what's real anymore. But that is really going to change content. From the cultural standpoint, it's going to be really revolutionary, but then there's so many other really positive applications that I'll go into. Number 5, wearables, wearable technology. We're working with a lot of wearable technology, 3D silicon molding fashion company. One that was just featured in Vogue magazine. They got an interview on the Wall Street Journal. Q Designs bracelet that charges your phone, cool stuff. But that's just the beginning. That's primitive stuff. They talk about the Internet of Things, the Internet of Everything, and after that, the Institute for the Future talks about the age of networked matter. And we're going to see virtually every physical good have sensors on them. Everything is going to be smart. Everything is going to be connected. It's going to be really exciting. Number 4, drones. Drone systems, whether they be new flying systems. Have you guys seen the video for the new quadcopter that a person can fly on? It's really cool. Some Star Wars stuff going on there. But also self-driving cars. Accidents. The average speed on the highway, and it was way less for me now, is 30 miles an hour. And when we have self-driving cars, it's going to completely revolutionize transportation. But not just transportation. The process of moving things from point A to point B takes up about 15% of the global workforce. Think about when that's going to be completely automated. It's going to really change our whole society. And a lot of people are scared about this technological unemployment. But I think that we have an opportunity to move a system of workers to creators. And I think that's something to really keep in mind, that we should only look for, yes.
Sorry, I was going to say, with autonomous cars, you know, I feel like that's one segment of people who are so worried about it, are people that love cars, that love driving, that love motorsport. I'm one of them. I love driving.
Yeah.
But I feel like autonomy allows the car to become like a manually driven car, to become like a horse, where you get to go out and actually drive the car. It's really just for pleasure. And to me, that's all I really want at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
That's why, personally, I'm really excited for autonomous cars.
Yeah.
But yeah, as you said, opening up possibilities to, you know, the blind, the elderly, or senile. You know, if you just had too much to drink one night. I love that. Yeah, even in the United States, 34,000 people every year die in auto accidents. I think that's absurd. So I can't wait for autonomous.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love driving also. And I think the art of driving will still be preserved, but transportation should be automated. And the Google cars have driven several million miles, and the only accidents they got in, I think they got in 2 accidents, they were rear-ended by someone on the human side. So a lot of these issues are really human caused. And I think then going on the other side of drones, that's on the big level. The smaller level is the nanobots. And just, I think 2 weeks ago, they were able to do the first nanobot that delivered medicine inside of a cell. So our biology is going to be hacked into by, imagine being able to have drones replacing white blood cells. We're going to be able to completely redefine what our healthcare system looks like at that point. Along those lines, number 3, stem cells. Stem cells are a blank slate on our cellular structure. We are now looking at a system where we may not have to die. And it's something to really think about. There is a species of jellyfish, of lobster, where their DNA just never deteriorates. And if we can hack into that biology using 3D printing, nanobots, it's going to be a completely different landscape. That instead of your health going up and then just deteriorating, imagine just continuing to get healthier and healthier. And a lot of people are scared of that idea of living forever. So instead, maybe framing it as being as healthy as you want for as long as you want. Something that is really unique to our generation. Number 2, graphene. Graphene. Are any of you guys familiar with graphene? Any of you working with that? Yeah, it's basically a guy won a Nobel Prize for it. It was just off of the graphite pencil shavings, and they were able to find its crystallized carbon, and it's stronger than diamond. It's completely flexible, and it's a superconductor. So we'll be able to have electronics that are transparent and completely foldable, but then stronger than anything. And what they're also finding is that it actually can be revolutionary for desalinization. There's something about it that only water can pass through. And in the process of putting water through, salt water for instance, it filters out fresh water, and the ions create electricity. So imagine being able to create free, clean electricity, and your byproduct is fresh water. Dirty water is the leading cause of death in the world. Revolutionary. And then number 1 is quantum computing. Artificial intelligence is something that is going to be so amazing. And we see it now. The Google, these algorithms that we use, it's artificial intelligence. But Ray Kurzweil talks about the age of spiritual machines. That when this point where we can have machines that have their own subjective experiences, their own opinions, their own spiritual experiences, that relationships with humans, it really is going to start to blur those lines. And as we start to have more brain implants, more of these interfaces, instead of dealing with our phones, just having, they can now text message just by thinking. You can connect right into your brains. That we're living in really exciting times. And I think that we will not only be able to change individuality, but our collective consciousness. And I think going back to this idea of social entrepreneurship, of impact investing, it's so important that we have these discussions, that we really think about this tremendous power and make sure that we're using it for bettering humanity instead of using it against it. And with that, I would love to open it up to any questions that you guys may have. Thank you all so much.
Yeah, so bringing up something you said at the beginning of this talk, you said anybody could have the potential to invest if we were to be able to automate the system. Would that basically be like a Kickstarter, but then for investment? Like for investment into companies?
Yes, yes, exactly that. What we're building right now is a system where you can, so first, AngelList is probably the best comparison. You guys know about it, that AngelList allows you to invest in companies for equity in a similar Kickstarter type system. The problem is anyone can be on AngelList. So what we'll be doing with our DraemVentures platform is every company on there will already be pre-vetted. And then through that, you'll be able to invest in there for equity, but we'll also have a Kickstarter type system on there. So we want to be able to do everything from that until the secondary market and creating another stock exchange. A big problem in private equity is that you have very little liquidity, that once you invest in it, it could be 10 years until you see anyone. So creating a secondary market, a new kind of stock market, is what we're working on building.
Just a quick follow-up.
Yeah.
Would you run it on digital currency or on actual currency?
So we're right now we are looking into building our own kind of crypto equity system. And I recently have written a white paper called Impact Quantum Crypto Equity. And going back to quantum computers, right now all of our encryption systems are with these prime numbers. And what happens with quantum computers is that it collapses the wave and it just gives you the answer. It solves both sides of the equation at once. So all of our passwords are going to be completely obsolete once we have a viable quantum computer, if they're not already. What the only answer, it seems, for quantum cryptography is to compete with protons. And China is actually building the world's largest, I think, 300 miles long of a quantum encryption tunnel. And it allows you to send data with protons. And the act of trying to hack it changes its physical structure, changes that private key. So we're working on building a system, not just of cryptocurrency, but crypto equity, that you can have a digital contract, a piece of that company, see everything, their social and environmental impacts, really quantify that, as well as their financial impacts. Be able to, in real time, vote as a shareholder and a stakeholder on how you want that company to be run, and then completely transfer it without needing a central authority. So that's absolutely something that we're working on.
Ari, could you talk about a struggle or a failure that you've experienced along the way in your entrepreneurial journey?
Absolutely.
Not to put you on the spot.
No, yeah. Are there any that you guys are particularly interested in? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that because like you said, there's like always a problem for the nonprofit because donation lines, and to keep the character of the nonprofit, you need like certain transparency. I think that is always a problem. But if you don't keep it, and you cannot keep the nonprofit organization. So what's your difficulty?
Yeah, exactly that. I think that the biggest problems that I've run into are on those corporate structures of. Right now in the Ivy Leagues, the biggest competitor to Goldman Sachs for recruiting is Teach for America. There's this growing sentiment in the younger generation that people want to really have an impact. They want to solve a social problem. But the problem is Teach for America is a terrible job, apparently. I have a lot of friends and family members that have done it. It's really rough and it's not financially viable. We don't value our teachers in this country. The public spaces and the nonprofit spaces are really financially struggling. And then conversely, on the other side, it's a struggle when you're in a company and all they care about is making money. And I think that it's taken a while of looking at that struggle and really seeing that benefit corporations are really an exciting opportunity to take the best of all the worlds. And right now, the biggest struggle is communicating that to people. So few people know that this is even an option. And so I don't think the answer is to trying to change these existing companies, but create a whole new generation of new companies. And so with our educational systems at Stanford, we teach the Impact Venture Capital workshop, and we empower students not just create new companies, but we also teach finance students how to look at those impact investments and be able to really quantify and measure and account for that triple bottom line. And so we're also working on a system here at Berkeley, if any of you are interested in learning more about impact investing, social venture capital, and benefit corporation formation. And I think that it is, again, our job as this next generation to set an example for the new way of making a living and making a difference. Yes?
Can you go more into the benefit corporation idea? Because you mentioned it was a nonprofit, but then it was a for-profit model, and how that works.
Yeah, so it's not a nonprofit, but you can have a nonprofit mission. So you can still,
mission.
right, exactly. So it's about being mission oriented. It's about wanting to solve a problem. And even if that problem is that there's not enough music in the world, there's not enough culture, or you have, it's just one extra paragraph in your articles in corporation. So virtually any company right now could be a benefit corporation. It's about the intention, it's about the consciousness behind it that I think is so important. And I think being able to communicate that with your shareholders, with your investors, that this is a long-term goal to really solve problems and create value, rather than just, in many cases with these current corporations, just exploiting one resource to give it to another group. I think that's really the unique area. So I think there's a misconception in social entrepreneurship and benefit corporations that you have to sacrifice the economic impact. But I think that by focusing on the social and environmental side, you can actually be even more profitable. Right now, the impact investing market, the industry is, JP Morgan report says it's $1 trillion now. I think that's a pretty gray number, because they have a lot of different metrics of looking at that. But it's going beyond Google's do no evil. It's tangibly doing good and still being able to run a viable business off of that. That makes sense. Awesome. Yeah.
And so I totally agree that we need to start creating a way to measure something other than the triple bottom line, I guess. But I do see that as being a huge challenge, because every nonprofit has different metrics that they're using. And so could you talk a little bit more about what you guys are kind of working on and how do you think that could work?
Yeah, that really is the biggest challenge. It's really being able to measure and quantify that, because so many different companies and nonprofits and missions have a different way of measuring that. So that's what we're working on right now, and really partnering with different educational institutions and nonprofits, and trying to really set a standard by working with companies at their idea stage, at their dream stage. We really have the ability to develop these metrics and start to really measure and be able to communicate those numbers. But that's still something that we're working on right now. There's a nonprofit called BLab, where they're actually working on getting the first publicly traded company, Unilever, as a benefit corporation, and they do a certification process. They have 12 different sections and hundreds of different data points on there, and that's like a fair trade or LEED certification process. So it's a little confusing in the naming. That's being a B Corp and versus a benefit corporation, and the terms are used interchangeably sometimes. But they're definitely allies, and they're a great leader in being able to quantify those metrics. Yes.
I was just wondering, so as technology advances and everything, how do you account for the people on the bottom? Is that part of your mission? If your goal is for everyone to eventually drive an automated car so that there's never accidents, but how would everyone afford that? Or especially if this technology puts people out of work or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a huge issue right now, and I think focusing on the bottom of the pyramid, as they call it, there are 2 billion people living on less than $1 a day right now. So it's a huge issue. But I think right now those people are looked at as customers of debt. That we see a lot of international aid going in the form of debt. We see the microfinance industry operating in the form of debt, and that's where you give them money, but they're expected to pay back. you're in debt to someone, you're working for someone else. And I think the answer really is empowering people to work for themselves, to create their own businesses. And I think as long as they are socially, environmentally, and technologically conscious, that we can empower these people in these developing countries to do that. There's this great allegory of chess. And back when computers were really being developed, they sucked at chess. And it was around the year 2000 where you could not beat a computer, that the algorithms just got so strong, the computing power got so strong. And they said the only way to beat a computer was with a hammer. But what happened was, all of these chess grandmasters started popping up all over the world in these remote villages. And instead of these power centers, the New Yorks and the Londons of the world. And what that means is that more people had access to these computer chess games, and they were able to practice more. And I think that's what we're seeing right now with entrepreneurship, that all you need is an internet connection and a phone to create a new piece of software. And that's really unique with this software, that you don't need physical goods to create something. You can create an app that can reach billions of people and have a tremendous impact. And I think it's about empowering people in those areas to have the financial resources to become chess masters. Yes.
My question kind of follows on from this one. It's always like the perfect economic idea that if the world becomes more efficient and people are displaced and then move to more efficient areas. But I'm from the north of England, which is like still suffering like some areas from like the loss of mining. People just haven't been able to make the transition to like the service sector or the technology sector. Like how practical do you actually think it is that a trucker that's replaced by a drone could actually reskill and participate in the economy?
Yeah, it's a huge issue, especially the older you get, the more resistant you are to change. But I think it's a core issue of education. And whereas historically, to be educated, you have to go to an institution, right now you can just Google something. So the barriers to learning a new skill are lower than ever. But I think it's also something about passion. I think everyone has a passion, they have a skill. And I think that by empowering people to really do that, there's a great Einstein quote that everyone is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it's going to grow up thinking that it's an idiot. And I think that's really the case, that we need to find these markets. There, in an entrepreneurship class I had back in college, they said the key to happiness is finding three things: a skill, a passion, and a market.
What was the third one?
A skill, a passion, and a market. So most people have a skill and a market. It's just a job. Many people have passions and skills, but no market, and that's just a hobby. And then on the other end, people will have passions and their markets, but no skills, and you're just a fan of something. But if you can find all three, that's really, I think, the key to happiness. Yes.
I was going to say too, I mean, in relation to that argument, as far as people losing their jobs and not being able to move forward. Like as you said, that's a huge thing for the north of England and something like truckers with autonomous vehicles. But and maybe it's kind of crappy to say, but at some point I feel like that's a temporary problem. I feel like it's a 1 or 2 generation kind of a thing, where by the 2nd or 3rd generation they'll have realized that occupation is gone and be able to move forward through it. If it's 1st generation, their parents, or the 2nd generation, it's our 3rd generation grandparent, grandchildren. It seems like it's, as I said, a temporary problem where eventually you'll figure it out and be able to move forward onto something else. You realize there's no money in mining or in trucking or, to me now, in medicine.
Yeah, we saw that in the last century with the agriculture industry. That was 70% of the workforce, and now it's low single digits. We saw that in manufacturing. So we're seeing a large displacement, but I think the real key again is doing what you love. It's about doing your dream job and having that and owning that and living it. And I think that we shouldn't look at it as a tragedy if these new technologies are displacing people. We should look at it as an opportunity to allow them to do what they love.
All right, last question.
Yeah, it's stage finance, but I was wondering, how do you teach yourself about crypto equity, and like you seem pretty versed about the technology world. I was wondering, what route did you go to, kind of educate yourself?
Thanks. Yeah, I learned so much more on my own and by talking to people and listening to people than an organized education. So I think again, Google is just such an amazing resource, and the rabbit hole goes so deep in whatever you're interested in. So really go out and learn about that. And I think don't be afraid of that being an exciting social experience of learning together. And I think that you can find what you're good at, you can gain mastery and autonomy in that, and create a new $1 trillion industry. So thanks again, guys. Everyone, can you all put your hands up?